So Man City have been in the business of emptying their wallet each and every summer. While they conquered England some time back, they've yet to crack Europe. Maybe if they chuck another 30 million at another goalkeeper, that might do the trick, who knows. However, what about the players who've left the club? Let's take a look at those who City have sold for the highest fees. Geronimo Rulli. So while Man City seem to be experts in spunking huge amounts of dosh on goalkeepers, they haven't quite mastered the art in moving them on yet, which is why Geronimo Rulli appears on this list, having left the club for Real Sociedad in January 2017 for a whopping £5 million. The 25-year-old Argentine had played a grand total of 0 minutes for the club. City attempted to entice him back to Manchester this summer, but the prospect of being wheeled out for midweek Carabao Cup fixtures did not appeal to him. Vedran Chorluka arrived in Manchester in August 2007 for £8 million. Following Sheikh Mansour's takeover a year later, he was one of the first out the door. He lasted a couple of hours in the new look regime, spat out to Tottenham for £5.5 million, where he went on to make over 100 appearances. Let's face it, he was never going to compete with Pablo Zabaleta. Jerome Boateng. Does somebody want to explain to me, at a club where they're prepared to fork out 50 million on defenders who can't defend, why Jerome Boateng was allowed to leave for £12 million? The German had signed for the club in 2010, played 16 league games, grew tired of being shunted out to right back, and so left for Bayern Munich the following summer. Since then, he's made over 200 appearances for the Bavarians, established himself as one of the world's greatest centre-backs, and won 5 Bundesligas, 5 domestic cups, a Champions League, a Super Cup, a FIFA Club World Cup, and a World Cup. But hey, at least they got £12 million for him. Matej Nastasic. Big things were expected of Matej Nastasic when he wound up at Manchester City in 2012. He ended up being part of the transfer mess that summer, when Roberto Mancini clearly left his brain on the kitchen counter when he went about assembling a squad. The Serbian lasted 2 years at the club, failing to hold down a regular starting spot, before Schalke 04 were kind enough to take him off their hands for £10 million. Alexander Kolarov. So Alexander Kolarov might have spent the last 5 years looking like he'd just been told his grandmother died, but that's probably because he's been wanting out of Man City every 5 minutes. Now that he's been granted his wish, he might actually crack into something resembling a smile, providing it doesn't break his cheek muscles, of course. He's just signed for Roma for £5 million. Clearly, City aren't very good at getting money back for defenders. Maybe if they'd actually buy some half-decent ones for a change. Shaun Wright-Phillips. It seems like yesterday that Shaun Wright-Phillips was an up-and-coming youngster ready to take the national team by storm. In reality, it's 2017, he's washed up in the USA, his brother has overtaken him, and he has a son who plays for England under 16s. Do you feel old yet? Having broken through at Man City at the turn of the millennium, back when they barely had a couple of pennies to rub together, Ian Wright's son left the club for Chelsea in the summer of 2005 for £21 million. Now, he probably ended up being used as an expensive human training cone, such was his lack of action, scoring only 4 league goals across 3 seasons, before returning to Manchester a shell of a man for £8.5 million in 2008. Javi Garcia. Remember Javi Garcia, City fans? Of course you do. He was one of the worst players to pull on a jersey for you since the days of Willow Flood. For some reason, Roberto Mancini thought signing the Spanish midfielder for £50 million was a masterstroke, following their title triumph in 2012. This was also the same summer they signed Jack Rodwell and Scott Sinclair. Garcia lumbered around the pitch with all the grace of a wounded donkey for 2 seasons, before the club finally found a buyer, the foolish Zenit St. Petersburg parting with £13 million for him in 2014. Jack Rodwell. Remember when Jack Rodwell was touted as England's next great hope after breaking through at Everton? You might also recall his personal winless run of 1,370 days, in which he'd started a Premier League game. Seems a bit odd for a future England great not to have won a game in 39 attempts. Rodwell had signed for City in August 2012 for £12 million, which was almost an immediately sackable offence for Roberto Mancini. It would be the equivalent of me winning the lotto and yet continuing to buy my shoes from the homeless. Yeah, I said continuing. Injuries hampered his stay at the club. There's a surprise. Playing just 16 league games before leaving for Sunderland 2 years later in a £10 million deal. I say deal, more like daylight robbery. Robinho was always going to end up on one of these lists. The face of the Sheikh Mansour takeover, it did not quite work out for the Brazilian at the Etihad. Following an impressive debut season, he lost total interest during his follow-up campaign, presumably when the novelty of his paycheck was replaced by the rain clouds and constant smell of fish and chips. He finally departed England, never to return, in 2010, signing for AC Milan for a fee of £15 million. Half of what they had invested in the Brazilian 2 years earlier. Alvaro Negredo. There seems to be a little confusion about whether Alvaro Negredo was a hit at Manchester City or not. On one hand, he failed to score double digits in the Premier League during his sole season at the Etihad. On the other, he scored 23 goals in all competitions as the club won both the Premier League and the League Cup. Reports suggest that he returned to Spain due to homesickness. These were surely erroneous, as the last thing a homesick Spaniard does is choose to live in Middlesbrough later down the line. Valencia signed him in September 2014 for £24 million. The The poor fella then had to go and take instructions from that lad off the telly. Kelechi Iheanacho. Is Kelechi Iheanacho finished at Manchester City? Officially yes, because they've just sold him to Leicester City for £25 million. Thank you very much. But such is the Nigerian's potential that the club have insisted on a buyback clause. Not surprising, considering he's got more goals for City than candles on his birthday cake. Settle down, Yaya. The 20-year-old has been nominated for the Golden Boy Award and he's also scored in the Champions League. So it just begs the question, what's he doing playing with Mark Albrighton? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.